One, check two, check three, check four. Check one, check two, check three, check four. Testing.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District Board of Directors to order. We'll first do a roll call, and I'm excited to. You can see we have all directors in attendance in person, which doesn't happen very often. Dan Swafford.
Here.
Lee Jones.
Here.
Penny Gibbons.
Here.
Jeff McKim here. Isabel Piedmont Smith.
Here.
Julie Thomas.
Here.
And John Hamilton.
Here.
All right. So let the record reflect that all board members are here in person. So we'll move on to we do have a bit of a time constraint because somebody who's here for the joint CAC meeting has a hard stop at 5. So we may have to recess depending on where we are. We may have to recess the board meeting, go into our joint meeting, and then move back to the board meeting. And I know several directors have hard stops at 5:32. So we're just going to do the best we can. Well, executive committee meeting minutes from October 30th, 2023. That's just an informational item. Mr. McGlassen, anything you want to call our attention to?
No.
Okay. Then we have approval of Board of Directors meeting minutes, November 9th of 2023. Is there anything, any directors want to say anything, making comments about the minutes? Okay. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain just because I wasn't there. Thanks.
Motion passes with one abstention. Thank you. Controller's report. Let's start out with cash flows.
Okay, the cash flow summary is on page 8 of your packet. The operating balance as of November 30th was $3,568,259.54. We did not have any balance in the savings account. That's been transferred. The November 30th balance for closure bond debt was $21,142.26. Capital account, $45,686.18. The landfill post closure is $755,477.46. The individual cash flow statements for each one of those is on pages 9 through 14 of your packet. The operating fund graph is on page 11. Questions about the account balances?
Any questions from the right?
Yeah.
From the left? Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This being the last meeting of the year and therefore my last meeting, I just wanted to make one comment about this, which I've done before. This is a pretty hot mic, isn't it? Sorry.
That's good.
Okay. I'm looking for that, my favorite graph. What page is that on? You know, the one that's our balances by graph.
Page 11.
11.
Yeah. You know, I appreciate all that people have done and are doing to move things forward with this group. I do just want to note that since 2016, I guess, when I started on the board, our average balance, I would say, has gone up probably $2 million or something like that. We have a very healthy cash balance, and I think that's fantastic. I just think it's we've talked about having a policy for what that balance should be, but I guess I would urge that we collectively look really seriously about how to invest that into the program with the focus on the mission of the group to reduce waste application, waste landfilling. And I know I'm not the expert on that, but I just think, to me, it looks like we've got very strong cash, and we should be looking at ways to push that out into the mission. So that's my comment from the end of the bench and the end of the year to just really encourage this group to set a target for responsible cash balances. But they are very, very strong, and they've grown a lot. And I think I would urge us to put those out into investment to try to accomplish the mission. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other comments about cash flows? Okay. Then why don't we move on to payroll and claims?
On page 15 of the packet, you have a total for the payroll and claims that was approved since our last meeting. And that was in the amount of $138,164.02. Documentation for those claims is in the packet on pages 16 to 31. And yesterday I emailed you the claims that we paid this week. That was the total amount of that was $175,988.90. That included claims approved under the resolution 2022-02 in the amount of $59,564.33, payroll of $23,826.77, payroll claims of $11,110.62, and $81,487.18 in claims that the board needs to approve. That brings the total of all payroll and claims that we are recommending for approval to $314,152.92, as reflected on the payroll and claims summary that was included yesterday in the email. Questions on the claims?
Thank you. Are there any questions on the claims from the left?
No.
From the right? Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions on the claims that were emailed to us yesterday. First of all, on page 3 on the claims docket line 14, it's payment to Harris Computers. It says for accounting software, yearly fees for 1/1/24 to 12/31/24. And I'm wondering why we're paying those fees when we have, as a point of discussion today, changing our computing accounting system.
We're still going to have to maintain that system to have the data available. I don't think there's any way that we're not going to be able to keep that system active for a period of time.
So was there any way to get a 6-month extension or a shorter extension at a lower cost?
I don't believe there was. That's not something that we looked into, because I honestly don't think that 6 months will catch it. If we do go forward with the accounting software transition, which we're going to present next, the actual just start of that probably wouldn't be until March or April. And then by the time we get through that, I think that the data that we're going to have available, because to go back and do the historical data is extremely expensive to do a conversion on that. I think we would be better off paying this, at least for now, to see where we're at. And our goal is at some point to get after we get the initial conversion done, which the initial conversion would include just bringing year-to-date information in. But then we still have to look at all of that historical data that has to be available for SBOA and gateway purposes. We can look at that, but I think it's going to be much later in the year before we would be able to do anything with that. So I think we're going to have to pay this for the 2024 year.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I had one other item that I wanted to ask about. And that's then on page 10, the claim on line 5, which is to Bynum Faneuil for rebuilding the lift station. That's a very high claim of $38,534. So I'm wondering if I could have more information about that and if that's going to be covered in the budget.
Yeah, I mean, I can, and this is actually something we briefly discussed previously with the board when we were doing some category money transfers. We had indicated we were moving a portion of the money we were moving out of the landfill capital category into the services and charges category was to go to help fund this project. And it's a situation where this is the lift station that services the original hill at the landfill, which is a clay-lined hill, pre-subtitle D, and it's a system that brings a lot of sediment through with the leachate that it collects, and that it's hard on the equipment. Also a situation where some of the contractors that we worked with, recommended, that previously had recommended, and we ever were to redo that lift station, to look at doing submersible pumps that had above ground suction pumps on it currently, or before the work was done. And the submersible pumps and the redoing the plumbing from that system is going to be much easier for staff to maintain and clean out with the sediment that comes through that system.
Okay, so there is money, yeah, I'd forgotten that we'd moved money from one category to another for the landfill.
Yeah.
And so that'll be covered in what was appropriated for this year.
Well, yeah, we did that. Some of that category transfer helped to cover some of the costs, but that cost is absorbed in the current appropriations for this year's budget.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions on payroll and claims? All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move approval of payroll and claims as presented in the board packet for today, plus the emailed document from yesterday.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. And I'm sorry, is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes.
Swafford,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And we've already had a sneak preview of the next item, which is the accounting software, which we are hoping to take a vote on today.
Yeah, and I'm going to defer to Ms. Martin, who has done the bulk of the research and discussions with the potential vendors on this.
We are looking at moving away from Harris, which is our current accounting software, and with just numerous problems. It's a very old system that we definitely need to upgrade to get better functionality, better reporting capabilities, better handle on the payroll, better ease of doing the payroll. We narrowed the choices down to 2 different companies, and we chose these 2 because they do integrate data directly into Gateway, which was a huge factor in being able to deal with the software. The 2 that are shown, and this is on page, there's a comparison, or kind of a rough comparison on page 33 of your packet. The 2 that are shown are Lao, which is used by the county, and it is also Keystone, which is used by some other solid waste districts. We looked at different points to compare these, the 2 systems. The first one basically was just functionality. Either one of them is a vast improvement over Harris. And I've done multiple demos with each one of them, and Tom and the Kelly, our office manager, have all done at least one with those. Lao is definitely much smoother. Keystone has a feature where you have to, and I say this just because this is something, even when I went out and talked to people that were using it, that was one of the, you have to open the door to go to another function. It's just a little clunkier. Lao was much smoother. Again, both of them are an improvement over Harris, and both have much better reporting features and capabilities for retrieving data. Lao was definitely, in the reporting was, I thought, outstanding. The reports are formatted much like Excel spreadsheets. The capabilities on searching within a report, within a column, manipulating the layout of things. And they also do produce reports that are identical to what the SBOA requirements are. Because right now I have to take reports and move that data manually into a written report that is the SBOA requirement. And this system, the Lao system, would produce those automatically, which is huge time savings. We reviewed the systems on customer service. And I will say that, one of the systems was a little more difficult in dealing with and even getting information about what they're about us even talking to them. Lao was definitely very was much better on the customer service, and you know, and I reached out to people that are using these systems. I spent some time in the office with Bree and Carly at the county reviewing Lao. They both love it, and they let me see how the entries were made. I talked to them about the customer service with Lao. She said they had never had any problems getting anything resolved within a day or within an hour or so, definitely within the same day. I also made a trip to Brown County to the solid waste district there. The county here is much larger than us, so that was a little bit different. And then when I went to Brown County, they're a lot smaller than we are, but they actually use the Keystone. They showed me various transactions. Again, the only negative she had to say was about that kind of clunkiness where you have to open the door to move to another area of the program itself. I talked to her about customer service. She said that it had changed some since the company had been bought, which was a couple of years ago, I believe. And she did not have any, she said they hadn't really had any huge problems with customer service. Those were the only two that I actually went to, but I did call Warwick County Solid Waste District and talk to their controller. They use Keystone as well. She's been there for almost 4 years. She said she hadn't used any other systems, so she didn't have something to compare it to. She didn't have anything bad to say about the functionality, and I asked her about customer service, and she said that she kind of had been warned about that, so she just about the potential of the customer service with that system. So she just kind of baked that into her timing, knowing that if she was going to need help, that she had to allow time for that. Obviously, price is a huge comparison factor. Lao is $52,845 for setup and $13,390 for an annual fee. That does include a basic conversion, which would get the two different types of conversion that we would be talking about. Just the basic is going to, if we started this in March, the basic conversion would convert the data from the beginning of the year. So all of that would be in there for like payroll purposes, W-2s, and reporting purposes for Gateway. A full conversion would bring all historical data in, which, as I said, is extremely expensive. I don't have a definite cost on that, but the cost that Lao quoted does include the basic conversion. Keystone is $20,636 for the setup and $4,000. Trying to read my notes here. $911 for the annual cost. That does not include any conversion costs because they will not give us a conversion cost until we allow them to fully access our server, and we weren't comfortable doing that since we're not under contract with them. Page here. Other features that we're looking at is a timekeeping system. Right now, we still do paper timesheets. This is something that is very tedious in that the rural sites have to actually deliver their paper timesheets to us over the weekend after they've finished their work, because our pay period ends on a Saturday, and they have to bring those down there and put them in a locked box. And just for approval purposes and those kind of things, it would be much easier to have a timekeeping system that we could do within the accounting software. Both Keystone and Lao do have timekeeping functions that would allow the employees to enter their time, and that's going to flow directly into the payroll module. The issue here is that Keystone does not currently have a mobile app. And the only way they could do it with the Keystone system would be to do it on a computer. And we can't do that at our rural sites because we don't have internet access there. Lao does have a mobile app that is functional, has geofencing so that employees would have to be within a certain distance of the facility so that they could clock in and kind of just safeguards there. So those are the things that we looked at, kind of comparing them. Overall, we definitely, I think, would prefer to go with Lao. The state has, I'm sorry, I think the county having binding authority over us, having the same system that they're using for reporting capabilities would be extremely advantageous. Bree and Carly said they would be happy to help if we encountered issues in using the system, because it is going to be a learning curve for all of us. But and we did look at some other systems. Again, those were ones that did not integrate directly to Gateway, but those were AccuFund and Sage Intacct were the two leading ones that did not. But again, we would prefer to go with Lao, and we would hope to get an approval for it so that staff could move forward with proceeding to get this to where we could implement it. Right now, Lao is saying that it would probably be roughly March or April before we would get things going. Questions?
Thank you very much. Let's see if there are any questions from the left.
We talked about that. We talked about this during the executive board session, so yeah.
Okay, how about from the right?
I maybe in the executive minutes, I'm sorry if it is, but what do we pay now, just for comparison, for this?
400 for the annual fee.
6,400.
Well, yeah, the claim that Ms. Piedmont Smith asked about earlier to Harris, and but that annual fee has gone up a few $100s every year. So I mean, last year it was $6,200.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions from the right? I guess my question is this already covered under the 2024 budget?
And it was not specifically planned for when we prepared the budget and submitted it. I would, barring unforeseens, I would say that the amount that you're looking at with Keystone probably could be absorbed into that existing budget. Lao, I would question if we could do that without resulting in the need for an additional appropriation somewhere later in the year.
Okay. And when would you intend to actually sign a contract? Sounds like what you're wanting here is essentially permission from the board.
If the board approves, authorizes staff to move forward with either of these today, we would engage them as early as tomorrow and seek to finalize an agreement and get the ball rolling.
And then would the board be voting on that contract individually or not?
Under our purchasing policy, the Keystone agreement, depending on what their conversion cost was, might fall under that threshold. The Keystone at over $50,000 would require a board vote to ratify the agreement. Or Lao, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Well, are there any directors like to either make a motion or make any other comments?
Did the executive committee review this and decide you support it?
We decided just to bring it to the board.
With a recommendation or just?
I wasn't, sorry, I wasn't at that meeting.
We did not vote, I think, on a recommendation, which is thought we would bring it
Yeah,
forward.
the executive committee heard basically this the same presentation from staff and agreed it was something to bring to the board up for discussion, but the committee itself did not offer a recommendation on either one of the proposed vendors.
Personally, I would like to see us adopt the Lao software. I think it would save time for one thing, and I realize that it is more expensive, but it would save us some of the costs that we're currently paying to the controller right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I would totally support a motion to
I would just offer with Lau that since the county now has binding authority over our budgets, we get lumped in every year with the audit that the county goes through. And I really think that if we were using the same software as the county, that would help expedite that auditing process. We have a lot of back and forth with the accountant that the county contracts with. And I think a lot of that has to do with, we just can't produce the same reports in the same format that the county does.
I'd like to move that we authorize Tom McGlasson to proceed with obtaining a contract with Lau for software for our financial needs.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Great. Is there any other discussion from the right? Or from the left? Yeah. Is there any public comment on this issue? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Swafford,
Yes.
Githens.
Yes, and I want to thank Ms. Martin for doing this kind of side-by-side comparison. It makes the decision much easier.
It was a very nice spreadsheet. Yeah, I think that made the differences quite clear. Thank you.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. All right, now my favorite topic, bulky item schedule.
If I might offer, it is now a little after 4:30. Our rebranding consultant is in the room to participate in the joint meeting, and he does have a hard stop at 5 o'clock to get to another commitment.
Okay. Is everyone good with the strategy of recessing this meeting, convening the CAC meeting, and then going back? Okay. Okay, this meeting is in recess. And let's see. So at this point, we would like to call to order the joint meeting of the Board of Directors and Citizens Advisory Committee of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District. Yeah, I was about to say that. Would you all care to join us a little bit more closely?
Looking to have a couple up here, and otherwise maybe sit in the front row there and utilize the podium.
There's Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, there's also a mic over at the podium.
And just, do we have a quorum of the CAC?
Yes.
Great, thank you. That sounds great. Well, let's, why don't we deal with the item that's most time constrained first? And that would be I know this format isn't ideal for a kind of joint meeting work session, but
I was gonna say, does Joseph have to call their meeting to order also?
Oh. well, did you do that last time?
Okay.
Okay. Well, our first topic is the rebranding launch. And I'm not sure who's going to lead that discussion, but my understanding is that of course, our rebranding consultant is here and is going to give us an update. So welcome to the podium.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrew Lambert, and I'm the president of Lambert Consulting, and I've been the gentleman that has made Tom McGlasson cry multiple times. I mean, helped with this project. Is this on record? Okay, so no, Tom and Joe and many of his staff have worked with me for the better part of this year to rebrand, relaunch, and ultimately revamp the recycling district. So I appreciate being here today. Am I providing an update so far, or do you guys have questions, or how would you like to handle this?
I would think, could you provide a little more update on the project, and then we can ask questions?
Yeah, that's fine. So what started last January was a movement to go away from Go Green. So just a brief history, when I came into Tom's life and his staff's life was almost a decade ago, they were just moving to what was called Go Green District. And my predecessor was leaving town, and I was brought in to help facilitate that move, which again has been here for, I want to say, about 7 years, 8 years now. And there's been a discussion of maybe changing the format a little bit, giving it a little bit more of a professional undertone in terms of title and coloring and such. And so I was contracted really for 2 phases. One was to go through the system to figure out the best name choices, the best color choices, and how that would be applied to any of the online stuff we do, social media, website, etc. And then phase 2 was actually the implementation once the board approved the new name, the new colors, and all that. And as we speak, we are doing little hints online, a little fun kind of Easter eggs through their social media, with a final announcement the week of the 25th, and then a new rollout of the website right after the new year, probably the 3rd or 4th. So while the website itself is not going away, we do have new domains secured at this point in time, and slowly we will take the Go Green coloring and logos away, and the new stuff will come into play. So as far as I know, we're keeping all the pages and relevant information intact. That may change in 2024 as things continue to shift, but for right now, we do have agreed upon a new look, a new feel, and a new brand that's going to be good for 2024.
Great, thank you. Well, let's try to keep this as informal as possible. So anyone have any questions, either from the CAC or from staff or from the board?
I just would also add, Ms. Pocrawl is attending the meeting on Zoom and has been working with Mr. Lambert in the past few weeks to help develop some of the media scripts and press releases that will be going out the end of this year, first of next year, to helping to launch the rebrand.
Good to see you, Ms. Pocrawl.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any comments or anything you want to say?
Yes, Elisa Pocrawl, Community Outreach Coordinator. I'm in following the guidelines, kind of the strategy of Andrew Lambert. I've put like 2 teasers on, 2 per week, starting on December 4th. We started that. And then the actual announcement will come on the 26th. All the media is set to go. The radio and the TV, I've written the press release. And then we are also, the other thing I wanted to say is that the public, judging from the hits on the social media post, they like the intrigue. There are quite a few hits on that, so it's proving to be a very successful strategy. The other things that we're doing, I'm working with Wes Lasher, a production house, to insert the new district logo and website into the Xfinity commercials that we have, the over 55 that we have, that hopefully we'll be able to do that wherever possible, so we don't lose those commercials. And then I've written 3 paid public service announcements that will air on both WHCC, Hoosier Country, and their sister station WBWB, which is otherwise known as B97. We've looked at the demographics and the psychographics, and it seems to be a good station that also reach a rural audience. And then along with that contract, it's not just 3 paid PSAs that will rotate. There'll be 10 or 11 of those per month. Then there will be, we're still getting this finalized, but at least 4 15-second sponsorship brought to you ads that will go on the weather sponsorship, and the PSAs will follow on the news sponsorship. So that will appear on both stations. And then with our regular contract with WHCC, we have public service announcements that I've written. They have like a challenge and a solution. And so those there are about 7 different ones. Those will rotate, and this year they will also appear on B97. In addition to that, regular, public service announcements are sent to, they're not paid for, but are sent to other radio stations. Most radio stations are very helpful in putting those out. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from anyone? Yes. And I guess, come to any microphone. The room's full of them.
So I wonder if WFIU Community Minute has been considered as an option for getting the word out.
We do have a PSA that I've posted to start airing on the 26th for the rebranding. And so that's just something that it's an event, and they do announce that. So WFIU also gets coverage there with the the free public service announcement. No, but I've not inquired about that program. What was the name of it again?
Community Minute. Nonprofits get 1 minute to kind of pitch who they are and what they do.
I can inquire about that.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to ask if there's going to be any activity at the main South Walnut location or at the rural districts, like in January, like any.
It has been discussed and is a possibility. We are currently still working with potential sign vendors, and doing an event would be dependent on having at least a good amount of the new signage up to do that. So probably not something that's going to happen the first of the year, but the second, third week of January, it is a possibility.
Yeah, Tom and I have discussed like a public offering of some sort, whether that's a partnership with the chamber or one of the other organizations in town. I personally think we should have a commissioner's dance party, but that was voted down. So, well, maybe just a mix and mingle will probably be what it comes out to be. So.
You don't want to do karaoke?
I'm okay with that too. Yeah, I got a karaoke hookup if you want that, or we could do a game night, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever you guys want to do. But as long as we get people out, the public out to see what they've worked very hard on, that's a big deal to me too. But to your point, we wanted to make sure that everything was rolled out, all social media was properly updated. I want to add to the Aliza and I have worked very well. We have a YouTube page. I don't know if people know that because of the amount of PSAs and messaging she has created over the last few years. There's now a great landing page with all that content. And we're in discussions of maybe still keeping that in an archived area. So if anybody was curious about the Go Green years, that's still there for historical record, but then moving forward with any new videos, creating that platform on YouTube as well. So our hope is as we roll this out into the new year, it's not just the signage or the meet and greet, but that everything online that they have touched gets that shiny new look to it.
Thank you. I guess I'd be interested to hear from my colleagues on the board or from the CAC if you have any ideas about an in-person event or any other ways to highlight the new look.
I will add, if I may, I do like the idea of an in-person event as well. And I also wanted to say thank you to Mr. Lambert and Mr. Pockrell for all of the effort that was put into all of the outreach. That sounds like a substantial list, and I think it will do a really good job. And I think that an in-person event would really just, help kind of bring the community together around it physically as well. I don't have any great ideas for the wheres and the whens, but I am in support of the idea.
I think it might be nice to look at our budget and see if we can do, I know it's probably not the most popular idea again, but see if we could do some reusable bags or something again with the new logo on it, and just have that, if you have that at every site and then people start seeing it, and having maybe putting both logos on it the first time around and then just the new one the second time around. But I think that might be a good way to do it. It's more permanent than an in-person event. I'm nothing against the in-person event. I think we could do both.
I like that idea. An in-person event in principle, I like too. I just think in January, having an in-person event at a rural recycling center is probably not going to draw.
You don't think the 60-degree weather is going to hold?
No, it could.
Tom and I have also talked about if you're going to do any of those giveaways, there's a lot of promotional companies right now that make things out of recycled items. So I've kind of championed that if you're going to do a giveaway, at least put that effort into that bag or squeeze ball or whatever. So
I think last time the bags were made from recycled bottles, weren't
yes.
they? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
That was the Go Green that has that, and several of the signs that I know Lisa's used at public events were also made out of recycled items as well.
Yeah, good idea.
That's a good, that would be a good idea. I kind of like that idea of having some kind of giveaway that's made out of recycled bottles, recycled plastic.
Would, and I think Councilperson Smith and I have joined Elise out at Walmart and handed out bags as well. So yeah, there are a lot of ways to do that.
One other thing to know, we did look at the cost of going like with newspaper or Lamar advertising, and it was a little cost prohibitive given the amount of money that had to go into the actual technical design of this and the website that we felt had to take priority. Now, moving forward, I walked in when you guys were talking about budgets. Of course, I love using other people's money wisely. So if we want to talk about a bigger announcement, say in the spring, I've tossed a few ideas to Tom, but that's not part of this commitment right now, which is just a reason why we didn't go that route.
I think it's important to remember to make it public also the logo and kind of the more responsibility centered language and kind of why we are shifting a little bit, if it's possible to do that, not just for the hell of it, but there was a reason behind this.
So can I address that?
Go ahead. Excuse me, go ahead. That is in the copy. So that's covered. That's covered in the radio. Well, in the press release that we sent out, it's covered in the messages.
So what we opted to do was look at the kind of how and why within each week, even as we drop in these hints to make sure people understood that we want something new. It was time for the change. I also got confirmation today that we did get fully approved by the state. We had an attorney make sure that the right notices went out to the appropriate parties. And I think Tom has those documents now, or at least they were headed your way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you addressed that, but the name change was fully approved by the Secretary of State of Indiana and has started to trickle out to the appropriate vendors or partners that needed that notice. So even though the name change publicly will be known January 1, we have already received that state approval.
And those notices will go out to the necessary state and federal agencies, banks, and vendors starting next week. And along those lines, I think important to note, that it's a full and legal name change, but that's all that it is. Our tax, our tax information, tax ID number is not changing. From as far as who we are and what we do, none of that is changing. We've just changed our name and our logo, and trying to present, as Ms. Pete Mundt-Smith alluded to, a little different perspective of our mission and the responsibility that we all have in undertaking that.
And I think he's being a little modest because even though it's a name change, there was still a lot of accountability at the higher levels of state and federal level. So that's why we went through the legal process that we did. It was good that we didn't have to change everything else. But one of the questions we got back was essentially like, do you know if anybody else in the state of Indiana is using this name? And it's like, no, I don't have the time to go to every county meeting. So they had to do a little bit of homework for us. But yeah, between Tom and I and the attorney, Steve Douglas, we got full approval.
I'd like to invite you after January 1st to come to the commissioners meeting and present this, and probably also others, so that we can get as much publicity around this as possible, because I think explaining to the public is critical and it'll help it stick.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know. And then what I would ask is if I could send the images and logos in, and maybe we share that on, and then that way I can walk through where the decisions were made. I know Joe had a lot of good input, so did Tom. So it was definitely a team effort.
I enjoy the ideas of the in-person event as well as the recycled bags. I reuse bags all the time, and I pay attention to what other people are using. And I think that's a really great way to use the budget. Another idea could be something as simple as a pop-up tent in high traffic areas. If you want to get knowledge and notoriety, including the giveaway bags at those pop-up tents. You mentioned being at Walmart, so that's a simple way to do it, or potentially on campus, or around other events that are already going to attract a lot of people. The Winter Farmers Market doesn't pull a ton of people, but just having a pop-up tent and that consistency over a period of time will enable people to become much more familiar with it. And it'll be, the familiarity is key.
Thank you. Anybody else?
You want Mr.
All interesting, good. I think, and I'm sorry if I don't follow this as much, but I think the question that I might want to be ready to answer is, is there any behavioral difference from our organization that is going to flow from this in terms of name change and programmatic?
I mean, as far as, the residents that use our facilities, other than new signage, they should not notice any difference in how the facilities operate. There'll, be no changes, with regard to the way we operate and service our Green Business Network customers. That's it. The name change is really more about, I guess, having a name that more better represents what we're already doing. So we don't anticipate any changes with regard to how we provide services and programs. We just wanted a name that we thought better represented what we're doing and what our mission is.
Okay, I do think it's an opportunity. It doesn't have to be immediately, but to build public interest and support is to have something with it that is a new service or a new program. The giveaways are one way to do that, but it's an opportunity to, for example, invest some of our surplus in a way that says this is what we do. We're committed to this, and to show we mean it. Here's what we're going to do over the next 12 months or something like that. Just an idea.
Well, I think that perhaps something might come out of the next agenda item that the possibility of developing an organic waste task force might lead us in that type of a direction.
And I'll just add, if I may, I think that a lot of the rest of the contents of the 5-year management plan also speak to those things. There are a lot of education efforts, a lot of focus on source reduction and waste diversion. So I think the 5-year plan is perhaps what you described, and this is one element of that reflects the contents of the 5-year management plan.
Anything else related to the rebranding launch?
I just before the agenda item, excuse me, I just think that we would be remiss if we didn't really fully acknowledge the input and effort of the CAC, and in particular Joe Winia, in helping with the logo in particular. Some of his computer and technical expertise was really beneficial in getting that logo together.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll add that it was actually a real pleasure to do, and I was grateful for the opportunity to participate in all of it. So thanks to everybody involved in the process as well.
Anybody else? Thank you very much for stopping by, Mr. Lambert.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for your trust in this, and I look forward to the big rollout here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And one last note, we are preserving the gogreendistrict.com for 1 year. So if anybody goes there, since there is still a lot of marketing out there, it will be automatically forwarded to the new domain. So for historical records, we will keep everything on our server for 1 year. And then at that point, when I will decide if it's time to archive it or just toss it. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, what was the main domain that we decided on?
wastereductiondistrict.com.
That's right.
And that will be the primary domain for at least the next year, because they were available. We did also retain the rights to wastereductiondistrict.info.net and .org.
So should anybody go to those, they will also be forwarded back to the .com as well. So even if there's a mistake made by a user, they'll still get to where we need to go. And Tom, can you give them the full name? I think we've talked about it, but what's the full new name we're going towards?
Oh, well, the full new name of the organization will be Waste Reduction District of Monroe County.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next item is the development of an organic waste task force. So let's see, who is planning to lead that discussion?
I will defer to Mr. Winia on this one. It was his suggestion to have this as an agenda item.
Sure. Yeah, I'll introduce it by just noting this is mostly a follow-up to our last joint meeting on July 13th, when we had talked about the allocation of, that was also following the budget presentation. So we talked about the potential of, or I guess the interest in allocating additional funding to organics waste management. And then the question was, how how would the structure be of the decision around how that would be allocated? So the idea of potentially composing a task force, I think at the time it was proposed of it being between the board and the CAC. But Ms. Piedmont Smith also mentioned at the executive committee meeting that it could go beyond that to include other members of the city and county to be a little bit larger. So just wanted to, I guess, have a discussion about how that shape might look and get that process going so that we can start those conversations going into the next year.
So I do have a question about that, but does anybody else have a question or a comment about? I guess, so is your thought that, or is the concept that the Organic Waste Task Force its role would be both to provide policy recommendations, but also to play some role in allocating of what grant funding may be provided by the district? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
That's essentially what I had in mind for it. I mean, it could be as big as we would like for it to be, but I think that was really the most core and essential idea, was just that conversation around sort of the district's intent for the funding that it's allocated and how we would try to find ways to allocate it and advise on opportunities too.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I know absolutely nothing about organic waste other than what I've learned in these meetings. And so, I would love the idea of getting citizens that are knowledgeable and interested involved and give them some say in how the resources are used.
Are there any preference among board members as to who would be interested in participating, or thoughts on the size of the group? Janice?
I think as the group continues to work, it needs to be flexible enough to take in new members. So for example, if the movement goes toward restaurant waste and dealing with that directly, then you want to bring restaurateurs on board. But if it goes toward residents, then that's a different group of people. I think there should be some initial meetings and then some decisions made once those initial meetings have occurred.
Is this something that we would want to also reach out to? The city and county both have environmental commissions, sustainability committees. I mean, do we, and even potentially representatives from the IU sustainability? I mean, I'm just, I guess, asking, how big do we want this to get? With, big can become unwieldy, but big can also open a lot more doors.
I'm chair of the County Environmental Commission, and I think they'd be very interested in hearing about this and helping to promote whatever comes of it.
It doesn't mean the whole committee has to be on there,
No.
but there may be some members who want to join.
Well,
A representative from a number of different
and I
bodies.
remember-
Knowledgeable and interested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think small is agile, and I think there's a benefit there, so.
So perhaps then we could start with that small core group and then have discussions about who might be candidates for inviting to the group. So that sounds like a reasonable start between the CAC and the board as the sort of initial members. And then the first meeting could be a discussion about who then participates after, or to invite at least to participate.
That sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay.
I mean, I guess one question is how formal, how much formal apparatus needs to be done? Is this something that would be done by a resolution of the board? Do we want to, go so far as to, a lot of boards and commissions, they have specific number of members that are considered, the board members, and that's where quorums are calculated, or do we want to be more informal?
Informal.
Informal, I think a working group is.
Yeah, I would, at least initially, and until, that group or, we would get to a point that we are starting to looking at recommending
Allocating
action
money.
or something like that.
That's a good idea.
I just wanted to add, and Tom knows this, I think part of it, but one, the City of Bloomington Utilities is expecting a major report back now in Q1, first quarter of next year, on the waste to energy approach. And that will, I think, drive whether they move that way. If they do, that's a big deal for kind of a 50-mile radius plan for organics. But we don't know that yet. Two, I guess I just want on your radar too, the group called, we call it Project 46. It's the Regional Climate Alliance. And to the extent that some of this may start to implicate regional opportunities, that may be worth thinking about too, connecting with that. And that group is going to be trying to generate both programs and some resources for that. So if it has a regional component, potentially that could be useful too. So thanks.
Is there any other, feedback from the board that you would like, Mr. Winia?
I think so. Would you be interested, Mr. McKim, in being a participant in that group? In being a member of like the initial core task force group?
I mean, I would certainly be willing to participate. Yeah.
Okay. I think if we're going with informal then, and so we have Mr. McKim and Ms. Jones as participants, I myself would be interested in being a participant. Any other members? Okay.
And I'm on the Commission on Sustainability with the city, so that takes care of that.
Right. And are there any other members present? Okay, Mr. Glass as well. Okay, well, I think from there we could probably just go with electronic communications to try to coordinate an initial meeting. If that
Sounds
works for
great.
everyone. Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton, for the actual extra information as well.
All right. If there's nothing else on this item, we can move on to the 5-year plan progress update.
Again, I will defer to Mr. Winia, who suggested this agenda item, and also note Ms. Kayla Strand from staff is attending on Zoom, by request to help look at how we're tracking, how we can track in the future the 5-year plan progress.
I think I'll start by asking if Ms. Strand or Mr. McGlasson, who are already logged into the meeting, have the ability to quickly and conveniently share at least a portion of the proposed plan reporting document. I am not presently in the meeting and I could be to display, but in short, there is a document that was designed by the Implementation and Evaluation Guidance Working Group from the CAC to basically provide a easy, convenient format to the district to be able to just enter information over time about progress on the 5-year management plan goals. So there's basically 2 main categories of goals. There are some that are recurring on some sort of monthly or quarterly basis where there's a certain goal of outreach to be done or task to be achieved. And then there's another set of goal types that are more project and progress based, where they basically would just have like a semi-annual or annual sort of check-in summary or report. So this is just basically an organized way to have all of those objectives, those goals and objectives, with a line for each item, so that if it's achieved or if a step is taken towards it, it can just be annotated at the time, and collectively over the course of the year, it will provide a pretty concise, structured yearly summary of the progress. It could be checked in at any time. So the goal was to present this to the district staff as a tool to use, get feedback on it, see how it looks, and that's sort of where we are in the process. Tom, do you happen to have any information on, or from Kayla, about perspective on the document and its format and its utility?
Well, I mean, Kayla hasn't had a lot of time with this. It was not necessarily something that was on her radar when she was brought in. So she and I, I've shown it to her and matched things up with the 5-year plan and asked her to kind of look at that. And some of it obviously is going to fall right in line with her duties and what we are envisioned or intended when we brought her in, or things that she has assumed in the meantime. But asked her to look at what's in there, what makes sense for her to track, what's not going to be in her bailiwick, and who else on staff might be best suited to try to track those the progress on those goals or those objectives. But again, with this came up at the executive committee meeting and the idea of having her get involved. So just, a little over a week ago. So she hasn't had a lot of time with it, but would anticipate here in, next couple of weeks, certainly before the end of the year, she should have a pretty good grasp of what's in there and where she thinks responsibility for following various metrics should lie.
So is that really the kind of feedback that you'd like to hear from staff? Who would have responsibility for each of these metrics and how they would be collected? Is that?
I think maybe even more generally, just if the format works and if this would be a useful tool, and if there's anything that the CAC or the working group could do to improve the utility of it or adjust it to be a better fit. I think is kind of the most valuable next step.
Ms. Strand, did you catch all that?
I did. And I know there are a few things. I had some questions. I know there are certain aspects that we do need to divide up a little bit more succinctly so that we can deal with those, because a lot of them are overreaching over multiple positions. And it's more of a group working on those, or multiple people rather than just one person. So we'll just need to figure that out.
Okay, that's good to know. And the goal of the document was to try to make a shareable version of it so that it could be basically edited by anyone, rather than to try to make it the sole responsibility of a single person. So I think if there are multiple staff who need to work on it, I would hope that we could find a format where that would be possible as well.
Yeah,
But we have an internal shared drive on our network, and if we could house the document out there where multiple staff members can access it, that shouldn't be a problem.
Well, we could always also add this as an agenda item for the next executive committee meeting. Give everybody a chance to look at it and give your team a chance to get more feedback on it. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Anybody else have any thoughts on the 5-year plan?
I guess I would just ask what kind of timeline we are hoping for as far as getting an initial report of how we're doing on the implementation of the plan. The reporting form seems to have, space for each month, so that it's something that's done on a monthly basis, but I don't think the board wants to hear every month. I think we want an annual kind of report. So when would we hope to get that, and what format would that take?
Well, I mean, I guess, are you talking about how often it would be distributed to the board or to the public? I mean, I guess the idea, it seems to me that if you've got a format here where you're tracking things monthly, that can be rolled up to any level of, any level that you want.
I guess part of the question is, do we want the staff to start with January? Do we want them to go back?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And then at what point would it be meaningful for board members to see the update, like end of first quarter, or, if we're going to use this form, it is that it leads me to those timeline questions.
I think staff could staff could go in and start catching up. I mean, some of this stuff has obviously been moving, throughout the course of the 5-year plan, and so I think there's some historical information that could be readily, plotted into the chart as we move forward with, looking at any tweaking that needs to be done to it, or figuring out what staff member is the most appropriate for specific items that are in there.
I was going to say too, if I remember correctly, I think some of the things have been achieved, like the rebranding was one of the things that But I can't tell because we only see a couple of months. I can't tell if this metric is strictly month by month or if there are items that are only looked at quarterly. And so it wouldn't make sense even if that's the case. Thank you.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't make sense to get a monthly report.
Right. I mean, I don't think we want staff to have to do extra work to get us an extra report, I guess. My question is, if you're already filling out this, if you agree that the kind of tracking data in this format makes sense.
Well, I think that's part of the intent of the form is, not to have to generate an additional report. If the board wants an update, here's the current,
This is what it
here's the
is.
current document tracking progress.
And so, it could be included in a packet, for example, with almost no additional effort, assuming you're kind of already tracking the information.
Yeah, I think maybe the only difference would be an opportunity for questions. If, for instance, the waste reduction specialist were to be present to report on it or to add any comments or answer questions. But I guess the hope is that the document would basically be up to date at most points anyway. So
Yeah,
pretty
kind of
much
like a
check on it.
dashboard.
Yeah, exactly. A spreadsheet dashboard. But again, this is completely up for whatever works best for what the board would like to see and what works well for staff. The goal is not to burden them with a task, like you said, to make it an arduous process, but the opposite, just to try to make it a convenient thing where it can be filled in quickly and easily and therefore be maintained lightly.
And would you like more like metric specific things, or is this more of a generalized, like we're making progress on this rather than a like straight number by number? And how often would you want those numbers updated then?
Well, yeah, I think if you look at the spreadsheet as it sits right now, there's a combination, a range of. I mean, some things are specific metrics. How many YouTube viewers in the month of January of a given year, and then also looking at over the course of time, is that trending upward or downward? And so I think I think both of those, are a variety of those types of measurements are in the document as it exists, depending on the objective or the goal that you're looking at.
Yeah, I'll note that for this draft that was presented, this was all taken straight from the metrics that were provided in the 5-year management plan goals and objectives section. So, I mean, if those should reflect completely everything that was specified in the management plan. So anything more or less than that would be kind of a reflection of what you feel is, or what we collectively feel is practical to be reporting on. So this is just taken right now straight from the plan goal and objectives.
And have we received this latest version? I was saying, I hope I didn't miss an email or anything, but okay, but you can send it out to the board then so that we can all give feedback.
Sure.
Okay. We can add this to the next executive session or executive committee meeting rather. As well. Anybody have anything else to say about the 5-year plan? Are there any other comments or topics anybody wants to address as part of the joint meeting for the good of the order? Well, then, thank you very much. We really appreciate your efforts and participation in the mission. It's important, and we know you take it seriously by the very fact that you're showing up here to work with us on it. So, thank you very much. The joint meeting then is adjourned. And so let's move back to the regular Board of Directors meeting.
Have some cookies before you leave.
And yes, there are cookies courtesy of Julie Thomas. Thank you.
Well, it's the Board of Commissioners,
Oh, it's
not
Board of-
me,
okay.
not me.
Commissioner's cookies.
And I think there's at least one there that's both gluten and vegan.
Oh, there's. We've got.
Yeah. No.
Pass it back down.
Back down.
Somebody needs to eat them.
Okay, well, I am going to call the regular Board of Directors meeting back to order. And we were just at the topic of bulky item schedule, item number 6.
Yeah, this is something that we've talked about a couple of times with the executive committee. But staff is looking at just the costs associated with operating that program, predominantly the transportation cost. The disposal cost kind of is what it is, and we don't know that there's much we can do that's going to drastically alter the volume of the waste. But doing a weekly rotation at each facility results in us paying to haul a number of partially full or empty roll-off boxes at a substantial cost. And we think that we can, alter that schedule some and save the district some money in the hauling. And on page 35 of the packet, you can see where we what our the 2022 hauling costs were based on that weekly rotation, and two proposed alternative schedules that call for the bulky item bins to be cited at each of the rural recycling centers for an entire month. The one on the left, the original proposed schedule called for 2 months at each site, which would result in 4 months where the service was not available. And then after some discussions with the executive committee, looked at doing an alternative that would do it 3 times or 3 months out of the year at each of the 4 sites. So it is available year round, which lessens the potential cost savings, but does still save the district some money over what we're currently doing. And so that's what we have proposed, and ask the board, to consider that, and if you're inclined to elect to move forward with one of those scheduling changes.
Great. Thank you for that update. Yes.
Can you remind me how much we budgeted for this for 2024? What costs we budgeted? Anybody know?
Off the top of my head, I apologize. I can't, because that's our transportation line includes more than just hauling the bulky item waste. Our disposal line is more than just the bulky items.
I really like what you have on the right hand, the proposed bulky item schedule on the right hand side, because there's something every month. And I think if we can, I'm still always bothered by the handwritten signage all over all of our rural sites, but if we can get a sign put out at the rural sites where the bulky display is not that month, and say bulky disposal is available at X this month, then everybody knows where it's at. If they have something, they can drive it over there, hopefully. I'd hate to have months where there's nothing, because I think that's where we make things too difficult for folks. So I do like the one on the right. I like that it still saves us $5,000 potentially off of 2023. But that's just my thought. Thank you.
Yeah. And I have to say, I am in complete agreement on that. I was not happy with the initial proposal, but I feel like this is a good compromise. It actually provides more service in some ways, because right now the 5th month or 5th week of each month.
Correct. It eliminates that handful of weeks a year where it's not available because there was a 5th Monday in a month.
Yeah, so this is actually a good compromise where it provides more service. Yes, it is true that it may not be convenient in any given week for any particular resident, but most residents, once they've got it loaded into whatever they're going to dispose of, loaded in their truck, they want to get rid of it then.
We get calls all the time. Where is it today? Because I'm going. And today's the day the mattress came. I'm getting rid of the old one today. So,
as another rural user, I much prefer the second alternative. It can be hard to find a place to store everything for a long period of time.
It can be. So, and we certainly understand those concerns, and that's part of the reason that the alternative was developed, and staff would be happy. Either way, the intent was try to save some money, try to make the schedule a little less confusing to the residents. So
Well, and Julie's point is that, you could, it would be difficult now to have that kind of signage that will explain where it is because it's week by week. I think it would be more confusing, but you could easily have a sign saying, at the Bethel site, this month it's Ord Road, in February it's in Ellisville.
as I mentioned earlier, we're getting ready to purchase a bunch of signage. We can add a few more to the list.
You could even just do one sign for the whole year that just shows
Here's
what
the-
you
here's
have
the
here, the
schedule.
month and the location
Yeah.
and people will get it. So yeah, it's awesome.
I was afraid that if we skipped months, that we would have more illegal dumping also.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Risk, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you all came up with this the alternative that seems to work for folks. I guess I'd be interested in if there's any public comment right now on this item, either on Zoom or in the audience.
I'm not seeing any members of the public on Zoom, just staff.
I mean, I know it's not a voting item yet, unless somebody chooses to make a motion. I'm just curious if there's any public feedback. I mean, as a member of the public who uses the rural sites, like Lee does frequently, yeah, I really like the idea of the alternative on the right. I think that's got something for everybody, and it saves resources.
I would offer that, staff is obviously, it's not much effort for us to make this change. We make some public notices, we notify the vendor that hauls. But if the board is interested in more public feedback or input in this, it's not a change that has to be made today. So I just would offer that.
Well, if it's not urgent, I guess, how do you all feel about putting it as a voting item at the next meeting? Or do you really want to take action right now?
I'd prefer to take action, but that's my own preference.
Get the sign done while you're doing the others, Might as well.
Then somebody would make a motion.
I move that we change our bulky item schedule to be monthly as indicated on page 35 under alternate 2024 proposed bulky item schedule.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments from directors? All right, I'll go once more to the public. Anyone, is there any public comment either on Zoom or in the Nat U Hill room? Okay, seeing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Swafford,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Abstain.
Thomas,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McKim.
Yes.
Motion passes with 6 yeses and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Because we have several members who have to leave, I'd entertain a motion for you asking unanimous consent to consider scheduling the January board meeting right now before moving on to the next. Okay, seeing no objection. Oh, I guess Julie, do you have? Oh, okay. All right. Let's go ahead though and deal with scheduling the January board meeting item.
I would just, Ms. Githens has previously advised that she's confirmed with Mayor-elect Thompson that she is available the second Thursday of January if the board wishes, for at least for January, to keep the existing schedule in place.
Anybody interested in changing the schedule?
The first city council meeting of the new year is on January 10th, so we should have an appointment for 2024 by the 11th. Maybe me, might not.
Yeah, I guess I should have looked at when the first county council meeting is.
Yeah, and our first meeting is January 8th, so we'll have an appointment by then too.
Great.
It'll probably be me again.
Looks like it's January 9th, so we should be, the county council should also have an appointee. So, All right, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the same schedule for 2024 as we did for 2023.
Are we voting on only on the January?
January, and then, yeah, okay.
And then we can double check with everybody.
Yeah, we at the January meeting, we can
That
set the schedule for the remainder of the year.
So I will move that we schedule the January meeting of the Board of Directors for Thursday, January 11th.
Okay, motion,
Second.
motion and a second. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks. Okay, then we'll go back to the recyclables and transportation agreement.
Sorry. As the memo on page 41 of the packet just indicates, staff felt that it was prudent, now that we do have a second recycling and disposal facility in the county, prudent to advise the board of the status of the current recycling and transportation agreement, the board's options related to that agreement. And as you can see in the memo, we are currently in the first renewal term, 1-year renewal term of the existing agreement, with a renewal date on that of May 1st. The agreement does call for a 120-day notice period if either entity wishes to opt out of that agreement, and would note that at that time we originally entered into that agreement, the recycling markets were different than they are now, and the markets are at a point now where, especially given the fact that we have source separated material, we should be able to get a rebate for a lot of that material, and the current agreement just doesn't allow for that. It's just a straight flat per ton fee for all the recyclable materials. So so that's something to consider, an option that might be out there if it was something that would be put out for proposal or bid. The transportation costs, we have a really good deal under our existing agreement, particularly with where fuel costs are. But would note that, we also recently did have to put, didn't have to, but we did put our glass out for quote, and Rumpke does currently receive that glass and is also hauling that glass, and that was those quotes were received from the existing recycling transportation agreement vendor, as well as another local hauling company. And so obviously Rumpke was competitive in that quote and did get that the glass hauling. I think there's risks either way that we would to go. I do see I guess I see three options. We can not do anything and just let the contract move forward. We can elect to opt out and issue the RFP. We also could potentially just issue the RFP to see what responses we get, decide if we want to, at that point opt out. However, issuing the RFP may encourage the other party to opt out. But the competition is here. I think maybe it might be prudent to investigate the options that are out there for us. We wanted to advise the board of what those options were, and note that if there is a desire to consider options, that if we wish to opt out of the agreement with a May 1st renewal date, we would need to want to provide that 120-day written notice by January 1st. And that the 120 days, I would note for the record, was at the district's request, so that if either party opted out, we had time to go through a proposal or a bid process and make sure we didn't have an interruption of services.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Mr. McGlasson, I thought from our executive committee meeting that we do not have to decide by January 1st, that we just give 120 days.
Well,
That is my interpretation. I'm not a lawyer, but I would. The agreement is worded that it had an initial 3-year term, and it specifically stated that the agreement could not be terminated during that initial 3-year term without cause. And then when it discusses the renewal term, it states at any point during a renewal term, either party may offer or may provide the 120-day written notice. I would interpret that to say that at any point during the renewal term, you can say 120 days, we're done, whether it's May 1st or not. But I'm not the attorney. I did attempt to get a representative from the county attorney's office here to address that, but unfortunately, I did not have anybody available to attend this afternoon. So.
We finally got our 4th attorney on this last Monday, so.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that January 1st was the deadline too. I had thought that we had, we'd be able to take it under advisement. Especially because we now had 2 board members who've already
that is my interpretation. But I'm not the attorney, and I'm fairly confident that the other party would probably have a different interpretation.
I was going to also say, as we consider this, the municipal solid waste, of course, under this agreement goes to Sycamore Ridge landfill, where they don't do any methane capture, whereas Republic solid waste goes to Medora, where they do have methane capture.
Well, Rumpke uses Medora.
Rumpke.
Yes.
That's what I meant. Yeah,
yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, yes, and that facility does have methane recapturing in place. And
so it's something to consider that
my understanding is that Rumpke is also looking at doing some fleet conversion to utilize that gas.
So if we think of the overall environmental footprint of our waste disposal, I think we need to take into account that the current agreement has no methane capture at the Sycamore Ridge landfill.
Yeah, I mean, the way I would think you'd handle that is in an RFP, you'd have your evaluation criteria, and you could have some, you might want to use that as an evaluation criterion to measure your proposals against. I mean, presumably we'd have several, but yeah, that could certainly be one.
It would have to be phrased carefully, I think, because from what I understand, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the city's current our recent RFP for sanitation services, I communicated with Adam Wason about it, and he said there was consideration of methane capture, but it was like in the overall portfolio of Republic, how much methane capture is there versus the overall portfolio of any other waste management company. So it wasn't specific, like, is our waste going to be subject to methane capture or not?
Well, I'm certain that there are ways, language and ways to incorporate a number of things like that into a bid or a proposal packet. And I'm certain that in working with legal counsel, with other districts that have done similar bids or proposals, that we could certainly find the language to incorporate any considerations that the board wished to weigh in determining the award for any of that.
Other comments?
Other things I think that are known things that to take into consideration. The new Rumpke facility, is designed differently, and it's designed to take materials delivered in different manners. The recycling in particular, I mean, they're prepared down there to bale source separated materials that arrive in enough volume for them to do that and ship them straight from that facility to a recycler versus going to another sorting facility. They're also set up to take single stream recycling there and move it to a sorting facility. But our materials, you know, are pretty much source separated and you know, would potentially have the ability to be baled directly on site and shipped straight out from there.
I guess I would like to meet with Adam Wason and review the recent RFPs that the city did to just gain some more information and perspective on this.
That sounds like an excellent idea. Is that, you just want to do that with Adam Wason and then brief the board, or do you want Mr. McGlasson with you, or how do you handle it?
Yeah, we could certainly, I could try to set something up with Tom and Adam.
I work with Adam with some regularity. I'm happy to reach out to him.
I think that's a great idea.
Let's do that.
Anybody else have any other comments? Okay, thank you for taking that on. Oh, yeah, please. Sorry.
One other thing that I learned about Rumpke is they do recycle certain things that others don't. And one thing is cartons. So all the milk cartons, the wax covered, and there are plenty of folks, all the nut milks, soups, that has a large impact, potential impact, being able to recycle that. I did learn that we can actually take them out to Rumpke's facility on the west side as an individual, but nobody is actively collecting them. And I also know an individual that has a large portion of his garage dedicated to those that he is excited to get rid of and recycle responsibly.
Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you for educating us. Yes.
And that, you know, and that is certainly something that needs to consider that staff has not, you know, fully investigated. You know, I want to avoid any appearances of collusion or anything, but it's certainly possible that, you know, that different vendors, different facilities take different materials. And, you know, there may be options out there to increase the types of materials that we could get recycled for our residents. You know, conversely, a proposal could result in options that have less ability to get things recycled. But
okay, well, I think we have a path forward on that. So thank you. Why don't we move on to the multi-dwelling complex composting pilot program?
Page is there.
Sorry, that would be page 54.
Thank you.
Mr. Winnie.
Evening, board members. Joseph Winia here of One Sustainable Joe, administrator of the Back to Earth Composting Pilot Program. And I'll be brief. All the details are already provided in the packet, but I'll just highlight that so there's been one site already in operation for 2.5 months now. That has been going very well. And the update is to indicate that there are 2 new sites that have signed on to a service agreement. One is the Middle Earth House for the Bloomington Cooperative Living, and the other is the Covenanter Hill neighborhood with Renaissance Rentals Property Management Company. So both will be starting early next year, the Middle Earth, January 21, and then Covenanter Hill will be in the spring once the conditions, well, if the conditions persist, we might be able to do it anytime, but the anticipation was once that weather becomes, at least longer days will be beneficial, but in the spring, when there's more interest in outdoor activity, that's when we'll launch that site as well. And that there's also interest expressed from a couple of other properties as well. So it seems likely at this point that at least 5 of the 6 available slots for the program grant will be filled by the March deadline of next year. I'm sorry, May deadline of next year.
That's great news. Thank you.
Indeed, absolutely.
All right. Any comments or questions for Mr. Winia? All right. From the left.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Good,
Thank you very much. All right. And then let's see, you may not want to go too far. Next time is a CAC report. That's what I'm saying.
Bill Joseph Mania, also chair of the CAC. Also just want to add that the last CAC meeting was canceled for November, so we don't actually have anything to report. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Now we have department reports.
Yeah, I'll just, reference in the memo, you do have the standard media summary and educational summary in the memo that I'd be happy to answer any questions on, but did want to give the board some information that I just have found out over the last couple of days. Heritage Environmental, who does a good portion of the household hazardous waste that we collect, did recently enter into a relationship with a private equity firm called EQT Infrastructure, where EQT does now have a majority share of that business. At this point, no indications that we're going to see any change in the way things are managed or how our materials, are, recycled or disposed of or processed. But kind of curious, Larry, about what may happen with pricing. When you have a private equity firm that gets involved in those things, they're looking for a return. So, just, something to point out. Also, if you recall, in the past few months, we did just start diverting our glass from Strategic Materials to the Rumpke facility. Received a hefty packet in the mail today. Strategic Materials had filed for Chapter 11, and unfortunately, they do owe us a little money. So, not a great deal of money. Probably a couple $1,000s tops, but at any rate, perhaps dodged a bullet there by making that switch when we did, and we'll take that paperwork and work with our legal counsel and pursue our options to recoup any outstanding, glass fees that are due to us.
I'm sorry to hear about that bankruptcy, though.
I am too, because they were certainly a good and valuable partner for a number of years for us until we had a local option to take that glass. And and I know that there's a number of other districts in the state that do still, currently and continue to use Strategic Materials that are wondering what the future holds for their glass program. But other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? No, thank you. Okay, well, then we can move on to other department reports. I think Mr. Long, Mr. Paulson are probably under panelists. I can't see them. Yeah, Mr. Long.
Hi, everyone. I will start with the recycling and reuse. We've worked with the Society of St. Vincent de Paul for a few years now. They've came in and got donations, and one of our young recycling customers came in one day and asked us if she could donate her books and if we would make sure that they was given out to somebody that would enjoy them because they meant a lot to her. Her name is Zoe. She just outgrew them, and we was glad to help her out. And we donated them to St. Vincent de Paul, and they sent us a very nice thank you letter that I think you guys will get to see or have a copy of. The Green Business Network, the newsletter that we put out, Kayla Strand worked really hard on with. She's done a great job on that. We've had a lot of responses back about what we can do for the customers and what they like and what they don't like and what we can offer. And so we're getting a lot of good feedback, and we can reach our customers and stay in contact with each business that way. We also assisted Pantry 279 with their Thanksgiving food drive. I want to say they done an amazing job out there. All the volunteers done a great job. We provided them our reusable bags for their food drive, and we collected their recyclables for them. That was very nice. The hazardous materials, we started working with Binary Heart of Indiana University. They take old PCs that they can fix and repurpose and donate them. We have a sign out sheet, or somebody comes in wants to donate their stuff, they sign it out saying they're willing to do that. The Binary Heart organization then comes in, picks it up from us, so we're able to pass those on to some other people, and it's been a good partnership so far with them also. The rural recycling centers and the main site for that matter, we have our annual Christmas tree boxes will be delivered in the next week or so. So we will start collecting the live Christmas trees shortly after Christmas. We will be doing that the dates of December 26th through January 13th of 2024. So you will now at the site see the Christmas boxes there. That's what I have. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Long?
I'm just wondering, what happens to those trees, those Christmas trees? Do they get mulched?
Yes, they do. We send them to Good Earth, and Good Earth mulches them.
And
And I've
that's for
been,
customers to drop off their trees?
yeah, free of charge. They drop them off. We then have the boxes hauled to Good Earth. They compost them up and sell the compost down the road or give it away. I don't know what they do with the compost, but they use it for compost.
Great, thank you.
Just for clarification, that has to be a live tree, stripped of any ornaments, lights, tinsels.
Stands.
Yes.
You don't want to mulch the plastic, huh? Okay.
I want to thank Mr. Long for providing all the reusable bags that he did to Pantry 279. There were hundreds of them that were used as part of the food distribution that they did at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And it actually made the distribution easier this year than in the years past.
So actually, your comments about the old computers was interesting. I actually have a computer that I was trying to figure out how to get rid of, and it's too nice just to be junked. I mean, it's not too far gone. And so is this the sort of thing that I could take to household hazardous waste and expect that it might actually be reused?
Yeah, if you bring it to the household hazardous waste, we have a sheet that we'll have you sign saying it's okay for your computer to be donated to them, because we don't want to give nobody's computer out without their permission.
Right, I've already done that too. So
then if you want the hard drive destroyed, they will destroy it through the IU program that they do, or if you don't care, they'll reuse the hard drive. That's totally up to you. It's so far been really good. Another thing that has come out of that is we're not able to help some of the larger businesses get rid of their computers because, we can't do every business here in town, obviously. So now I can direct the businesses to this organization. So it's another outlet for that kind of stuff. And that's been great. So I've been sending a lot of stuff that way that we can't help with, but they can.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great news. Thank you. That's really helpful.
It's really nice.
All right. Anything else? Mr. Paulson.
Hello, Lee Paulson, Environmental Compliance Landfill Directors. Been a busy month. November is always a busy month now that we do our groundwater sampling at that time. Everything went pretty smooth. We just had some equipment issues that our personal, the equipment that we own is being repaired. But the sampling itself, once we got backup equipment to us, went just fine. All that stuff is, as of today, I've forwarded all the lab data and the documentation needed to AECOM for their statistical analysis, and hope to hear back in the next 3 to 4 weeks from them to get that sent off to the state. From what I saw with that stuff, and the lab results, nothing stuck out, anything really that I could see that was anything different than what our kind of in our normal for our groundwater. This was the long list as well. So it was a pretty hefty lab bill for all that stuff, because there's hundreds upon hundreds of parameters that they test for each well. So, but it went pretty good. The other thing I'll highlight is that I'm finally able to maneuver and get security cameras installed out at the landfill, especially around the treatment plant building. So hopefully that will help deter some of the individuals who like to break in my building and just mess with some stuff out there. A lot of signs, a lot of stickers and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that that is enough to just deter people to leave us alone, kind of thing like that. So And the only other thing is, with the warm weather that being as well as it's been doing, we're still having a lot of volunteers doing roadside cleanups and adopt-a-road stuff. So the fact that we're still going into the second week of December and 50, 60 degrees at times, man, this is pretty crazy. So they're still out there doing it. So we're still out there collecting and encouraging. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Great, thank you very much.
I'm going to ask Mr. Polson to tell the board what he and I went and picked up this afternoon.
Oh yeah, we got the second truck that we purchased way back in like March, April. The compliance truck, the 2500 with the lift gate and the winch. We had that delivered. We picked that up today. So it is a very nice truck, very long truck. So we're looking forward to getting that out on the road and retiring the previous red compliance truck. So, but it's a nice ride. So Danny and Mary Beth will be happy to drive around to pick up trash.
Do a few donuts.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a long time. Fantastic. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Paulson? No, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. You guys take care.
It's good to see you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Indeed.
Yeah, you too.
All right. And so no other department reports? Okay. Great. We'll move on to public comment. Is there any additional public comment, either on Zoom or in the Nat U Hill room? Seeing none, are there any comments from?
Wait.
Oh,
You're too fast.
Oh.
Joe Seguini here again. Just wanted to say thank you again to the district board and staff. It's been a pretty active and eventful year. I'm excited about the rebranding, excited about the year to come, and just, yeah, very grateful for your involvement and participation in everything and acceptance of ours. So thank you for that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Any other public comment? Okay, great. Then we'll move on to comments from directors. Are there any comments from the left?
No.
From the right?
Just thank you to all the hardworking staff of the district and good wishes for happy holidays.
Indeed. Thank you all, and thanks to our members of the CAC. And yeah, everybody stay safe. Happy holidays. The meeting's adjourned. Thanks. Thank you all for sticking with us tonight.
Yeah.